Incredible edibles start with Loran. Professional bakery emulsions, super strength flavors, and candy mixes from Loran make it easier than ever to create your own delicious edible experience. Bite Me listeners in the contiguous 48 receive 15% off their order at loranoils.com. Just enter Bite Me 15 at checkout. For listeners outside the 48, email customer care at loranoils.com for a list of distributors and retailers near you and tell them Marge sent you. Welcome back, friends. It's your host, Marge, and I'm excited to present to you a conversation I had recently with CEO and founder and wearer of all the hats at Fat Nugs Magazine, Dustin Hoxworth. Welcome to the Faces of Cannabis interview series, where we take a break from talking about edibles and focus on the people behind the plant. Whether it's fellow podcasters, bud tenders, gangiers, advocates, cultivators, cannabis lovers all have their stories to share, and I want to share them with you. Greeting, friends. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Bite Me. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm glad you found me, and I'd love to hear how you discovered the show. If you've been around for a while, my heartfelt appreciation goes to you. It is not easy creating a show from scratch when you're competing against studios with famous names and huge budgets, but I'm not doing it to compete. I'm doing it because I love it. And we're all united as people, as humans who love edibles and cannabis in all its myriad forms. So whether you love cannabis for pain-relieving topicals or for mind-mashing concentrates, there's something for everyone here. Now, I'm in Berlin, Germany, as this episode gets released, which has been super cool. Berlin is just a bit bigger than the city of 100,000 from which I hail. And the weather here in the last few days has been absolutely gorgeous. The flowering trees are starting to open up. The lilacs are blooming. You can smell the flowers in the air. It's so nice. Now, I don't know if it's going to stay as warm as it has been the last few days, but I am going to enjoy it. And while this episode was actually recorded back home, it will be the first time I'm recording an intro since I've been away. So I hope it sounds as good as I think it does. Now, when I listened to this episode to prep the notes for the show, I was struck by how passionate Dustin is about what he's doing, the work that he's doing. And I think that's what attracted me to him in the first place, is the fact that he's a connector of people. We get into a number of topics in this episode. His first experiences with weed. He probably started younger than you think. Celebrity culture. What sets Fat Nugs Magazine apart from other print publications. Why he started a print publication. Where he's going with it. And so much more. And just so you know, his magazine is also available to read online if print isn't your thing. This was a great conversation. So without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Dustin of Fat Nugs Magazine. Oh, it didn't count down. But regardless, welcome everyone to Bite Me, the show about edibles. Today I have a special interview. This is a Faces of Cannabis interview, and I'm joined today by Dustin of Fat Nugs Magazine. And Dustin, could you introduce yourself to the listeners of Bite Me?
Absolutely. Just like you said, my name is Dustin Hoxworth. I am the founder, creator, editor at large, art director, shipping guy, marketing person of Fat Nugs Magazine. We've been around doing this for, I guess, a little over 2 years now, and we have sort of developed a pretty cool community platform through Fat Nugs Magazine. So that's who I am.
Right. So you're wearing all of the hats, which has got to be really challenging, but I know you do have some support. But before we get into, the experience of running a magazine that you've been doing for the last couple of years, let's first talk about your first experience with weed, because obviously you wouldn't be running a magazine based on cannabis content if you weren't really into smoking, consuming cannabis.
Yeah, for sure. There's kind of two parts to this, because my first experience with weed was when I was a very, very early child, having a large military family. really meant that we had a lot of PTSD in the family, a lot of aggression in the family. So weed was smoked from the earliest moments of my childhood. It was just around in my family. My uncles always smelled like it. My dad always smelled like it. Like that was just what it was. So that's really my first experience with it. Um, and that lasted for a long time. I also lived with an indigenous stepfather who was a consumer. So it was just always around no matter where I was in life. And then really my first experience with it, I think I was 9 years old. My brother is 6 years older than me. He had a party at the house when my parents were out of town. And I came back from like the roller skating rink with my friends, and the house was so packed and the whole place was filled with pot smoke, right? With weed smoke. And I couldn't even get up to my room. So they had to pass me up the stairs, like at a concert. And while they were doing that, they were like, "Here, kid, hit this, hit the," like doing the things you shouldn't do as kids, but as they're teenagers. So what do you expect? Teenagers are terrible people, to be honest with you. And then my real first experience of, smoking on my own, I was probably around 16, maybe early 17-year-old. And then, pretty much had a bag from there on.
Right. Well, I guess, I mean, that's how it's so interesting to talk to people about this, because my own childhood, I wasn't 9 when I first started smoking. That's pretty young, admittedly. And when you said teenagers are terrible, it made me think of myself, because I was an asshole teenager for sure.
Most of us were.
Yeah. But I also came from a very religious upbringing. So I did not have all the weed around me all the time. I definitely had to go out and find it myself. But I'm curious now, how do you feel about edibles? Because as somebody who runs an edibles podcast, I'm just curious about your opinion on edibles.
So I love edibles, and normalizing cannabis that way through food and beverage, I think, is super important, first of all. But I'm a big edibles fan, especially when it's around normal food. It doesn't always have to be candy. It doesn't always have to be cupcakes or cookies or brownies. So I love, I don't know, maybe an elevated experience when it comes to edibles, I guess you could say. I will eat edibles, but admittedly, they don't really affect me very well. I tend to have to eat a lot. Um, you know, 60 to 75 milligrams is not a big deal for me. I could probably eat 150 to 200 milligrams at a setting, or in a sitting at one time, and be a normal functioning human being. That's sort of sad. And I end up also, this is the bad thing about edibles for me. When I try to take one for sleep, and I inevitably wake up in the middle of the night with a headache. I don't know why that is. So I just don't really eat them that often.
Right. So I'm assuming that it's not your preferred way to consume. And just so you know, there's no wrong answer to that question. Yes, I love edibles myself, but cannabis is so beautiful. It can be enjoyed in many different ways.
Absolutely.
Depending on, what works best for you. So what is your favorite way to consume then?
Obviously, I don't know, I was smoking earlier. I like to smoke a joint. I love it. But honestly, dabbing has become more of a thing here lately because I have a new PAX, which is kind of cool.
Oh,
An
nice.
engraved
Okay.
Fat Nugs Magazine. PAX sent me a gift, just a kind of a congratulations to launching Fat Nugs Magazine, and engraved a new PAX Plus with Fat Nugs Magazine. So I was like, oh my God. So I had to learn how to dab more often. I'm not a big concentrates person, but I have had more here lately, which is something different.
Right. I have a PAX too. I happen to love it. And that's an excellent gift to get for sure. Yeah. Now, I am curious, what inspired the creation of Fat Nugs Magazine, and what do you think sets it apart from other cannabis publications?
Oh, wow. We could be here all day with this question. So, I've always been kind of a silly creative person, I guess. I've written and released 3 albums on my own. I play a lot of different instruments. I do a little bit of painting, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always looking for sort of a creative dump, I guess you could say. And really, when I stepped into cannabis a few years ago, I noticed there were some things about some of the media that we have that just didn't feel right, I guess. And I saw some things that I didn't like. And that really pushed me to create something different. Now, I would be lying if I said I went out to create a publication. Absolute lie there. I would not be able to say that with a straight face. I was sitting on my couch one night, stoned, playing on my phone. 2 weeks prior, I'd created something that sort of raised hell in the industry and became kind of viral. And from that, after things calmed down, I said, you know what? I want to do this on my own. I want to, you know, do this on a regular basis, but have it my own. So I was sitting around one night on my couch, like I said, stoned as normal, and creating just a cover on my phone using a few different apps that I use to create things. And it turned out to be the very first cover of Fat Nugs Magazine. And I posted it on what was it? What do I call it? Fat Nugs Friday. It was a Friday. And ever since then, I've posted consistently every Friday, call it Fat Nugs Friday, whether it be a new cover. And these covers are not real magazines. It didn't start out that way. It was just for me, a way for me to create something fun, post it on LinkedIn, and have a good conversation about it. That's it. That's what it was. It was to talk to my growing network in a much more, I guess, broad fashion. Because there's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, a lot of text. It's text heavy. So it's a lot of black and white. So when you put something artistic in cannabis on LinkedIn, people generally stop scrolling. And at that point, you have a chance to sort of share something cool with them, a story or a headline or whatever, and create conversation. And that's really how this started. So February 1st, 2022 was when right around the time that I had posted the first one, Fat Nugs Friday. Sometime during that week, it was that Friday. And then May 6th of that year was the very first edition that came out, and it was digital only.
So you started out on LinkedIn. I find that really interesting because it's not like I'm on LinkedIn, but it's not where I tend to post. Do you find you must find then that LinkedIn is pretty cannabis friendly?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So anyone who is in cannabis and is not on LinkedIn and using it regularly is absolutely missing out. So LinkedIn is the only real social media platform that we have where 98% of the things that we want to say about cannabis, we can say and do and share without being scared of getting kicked off of the platform. We all know that Instagram and Facebook and, well, Meta in general, sort of sucks when it comes to cannabis. So LinkedIn is the place. And that's where your CEOs, your vice presidents, your thought leaders, the people who hold the purse strings, the marketers, the creators around cannabis, that's where they are. So building this on LinkedIn means it's an industry publication made for consumers, knowing that consumers make up our industry. So what I'm doing is making sure that every single little move that I make with this publication is 100% transparent within the industry. It's creating a community platform. People get to see it on a daily basis and watch how it's developed from scratch, from what it was as a fake publication, so to speak, with just a cover, to now having over 3,000 copies sell out every single time that we put out an edition. So that's what's going on here. And LinkedIn is the driver of that. That is really how I've built this thing. And it's because of the eyeballs of the CEOs, the thought leaders, the vice presidents, all of those people. They are the ones that are seeing this. So they want to be a part of it because they see the authentic part that we're doing within the space. We're uplifting, we're positive, we're always pushing positive stuff about the plant. And when you do that on LinkedIn, people love that stuff. People think that a lot of negative shit on social media garners attention. I am the complete opposite of that. I don't believe that negative is good in any way, shape, or form around this plant, period. So I don't fucking touch it. And if I do, that usually means I'm also offering up an alternative so that maybe this is how we could do it a little better, something along those lines, so that we at least end it on a positive note, right? So it's extremely positive and uplifting and helpful and supportive. And all of that on LinkedIn is transparent. And so you get to build a community with like-minded people who love the plant, who enjoy timely, relevant content around cannabis. And they get to be a part of it, because guess what? It doesn't cost you $2,500 to get an article done here, right? And we don't do the whole pay-to-play bullshit. So it's authentic journalism, storytelling, and badass art. And doing it on LinkedIn has been the greatest move I could have ever done with this magazine.
Huh, that's really interesting, because as someone who is currently shadow banned once again on Instagram, I should probably be looking into that a lot more. And I do have a LinkedIn platform and, followers and stuff, but it's really refreshing to hear that there is a social platform out there that will embrace cannabis content instead of punish the content creators for it. So, and I do really like your approach to positivity as opposed to negativity, because we get enough of that shit.
You can get it
everywhere.
anywhere. You can get that anywhere. And it's not only... Yeah. And it's not only in cannabis. You just step outside of cannabis and mainstream media is fucking negative.
Yeah.
You can go and you can see some of the coolest, most inspirational stuff on social media, go into the comments, and half the comments are garbage.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't want to be those people.
Right.
I want to be somebody who, folks actually want to have a good time with. Fuck off with the negative stuff. I just don't do it. It's not worth my time. And by the way, the main reason behind that is because how cannabis has affected my life, what it's been to me and my family, or my family and I, or my family and me. It's also provided a way for me to pay for my college education by running pounds from Atlanta, Georgia down to Georgia Southern University for years in the 90s to help me pay for school. It afforded health, so to speak, to people in my family who had massive PTSD issues and still do to this day. My family has been plagued with suicide and violence and all kinds of crazy shit because of the stuff we've gone through. Weed, cannabis, is the only thing that has ever really worked to make people calm in my family, to allow a sense of normalcy, so to speak. So the only way that I look at cannabis is in a positive light. So if I didn't share it that way, I would be inauthentic to myself and I would be pissing on my fucking family, and I won't do that.
Right.
So that's why you get the positive stuff from me.
Yeah, I love that. Now, Fat Nugs Magazine, how do you approach cannabis culture and lifestyle content differently? And do you hope, what do you hope readers take away from each issue?
It's a good question. So I think there's a lot of stuff that differentiates us here. I think one of the things that we're able to do is talk to people outside of this industry. So we're known as a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. And what that means is I can talk to people like you and I all day long about cannabis, science, education, fun, silly, edibles, blah, blah, blah. We can talk about weed all day long, right? Through this magazine, this publication and media company that we are. We can do that very easily. That's who we are. But one of the things that we're able to do is speak to people outside of this industry that don't understand that there's a community and culture connected to this plant. And the reason we're able to do that is because we understand science and education are extremely important when it comes to cannabis. But what's more important is making that science and education personal, because you want to tell stories, right? You want to get people to connect with the plant in a positive way. So we talk about, the 2-year-old who takes a broad spectrum product at night to control seizures, or your 89-year-old grandmother who sits in her rocking chair and smokes a fat ass blunt because of her rheumatoid arthritis. When we share those stories with people outside of this industry and don't understand that there's a community and culture connected to this plant, what we're doing is the number one thing we are meant to do in this industry. And here is our number one goal, which is to uplift the plant into its rightful place into society, period. That's what we do. So we tell those stories in a positive way, pull people into the plant, uplift the plant. We get everybody connected to it. They understand it from a health perspective. It's not just something to get stoned with. We sort of elevate the conversation. We make it okay, all of that kind of stuff, right? That is important work to do for normalization. So that is an important approach that we do. And I think one thing that can differentiate us in this space. Other stuff, like I refuse to work with anyone who has ever lobbied against homegrown and caregiver rights. If I did, again, I would be spitting on my family. And what that effectively means, and not to call out anybody's companies or and in a negative fashion, but it's my choice to not work with companies who are lobbying for things that destroy the industry, that destroy small businesses, that lock out people from getting licenses from the state of like Florida, right? Those types of companies. So we don't really do corporate cannabis. We don't take money from those companies. We don't ask for anything from those companies. And we don't want them here, honestly. So that's another thing that differentiates us in this space. I say no. Another thing that differentiates us is I don't have a board to answer to. We are an ICP, independent cannabis publication and media company. What that means is we have no backers, no investors, no one telling us what we can and can't do, what we can and can't say, and when we can do all of that stuff, right? So I get to do what I want to do and what my team wants to do. And usually that means we're serving the plant first and we're uplifting everyone else around that. And that's what we're doing here. So that's also something that is making us different in this space. I can go on and on if you want me to. Is it the art? Probably. Is it the fact that I don't really put people on this fucking cover of the magazine? Probably another one. And it's you can't come here and bully us. We don't do the pay to play nonsense. You can't come here and say, here's $5,000. Let me get my CEO an advertorial or whatever, a story inside your magazine, or here's 20 G's. Let me get my CEO on the front cover. It's never going to happen. I don't give a shit. I don't want you on here. That's just not how we're doing things. This is about a community platform that uplifts this plant and everyone around it first. It's not about corporate nonsense. It's not about pay to play bullshit. It's not about supporting people that do terrible things through lobbying. We don't do any of that stuff. Now, I don't know if that makes us different than everyone else, but I tend to think it does. So there you go. There's another one.
I do tend to think
Want anything else?
Too, yeah. Because honestly.
So here's another thing.
Yeah.
Here's another big one. So my team is essentially, and myself, we've all been volunteers for the past 2 years for the most part. And what that means is for about 2 months, every 10 weeks or so is when we release a new edition. For 2+ months, we work for free. None of us get a fucking thing around here. And we just want to support and do the right thing and tell stories and create stuff and have fun. That's what we do here. And then once we go to print, if and when we get to go to print, if we have anything left over from our advertisers, that's what the team gets to split. So think about that. Think about what we're actually doing here and why we're able to do that. The only reason is because we have selfless people on this team that just want to see the right thing done in this space and uplift things all over the place, period. There's another differentiator. There you go.
So basically the people on your team, yourself included, are earning money from the actual sales of the magazine and not from advertising specifically, like most publications.
So actually it's both. Mm-hmm. So advertising is what allows us to go to print. Mm-hmm. And then if we have anything left over from that, from our advertisers, that's what we all get paid from. And then on the back end, as our distribution grows, yes, that also pays us. Right. So it's just a slow grind. Because when you're not doing the pay to play stuff, when you're not charging someone $2,500 for an article, mm-hmm. and think about it, I have 10 articles in this thing. That's 25 G's that I would be sitting on just for writing articles if that was the case. We don't do that stuff, so we have to do it in a way that we have to show ROI. No shit. Mm-hmm. And we do that in very different ways as well. Here's another differentiator for you. I do something called media blitzes for everyone that advertises with us. No other publication and media company does this. I don't think they can do it in this space. So what that means basically, excuse me, is that the entire team, once we go to print and once we release this edition digitally, we then take those advertisers and we start to push them all together as a team on our socials, their advertisement specifically from that particular edition. And what that does is create a wall of information that you cannot get around. If you are in the industry, you're going to see Fat Nugs Magazine stuff, period. We do that on purpose. It serves our clients. It serves our writers. It serves the people who are enjoying the magazine, period. So we're doing things here very different in every single way. None of it is pushed by cash at all. It's all desire, passion, love, acceptance, normalization, all of that kind of shit. Sorry, I keep banging my desk. All of that stuff. I get a little passionate sometimes.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
calm down
excited.
here in
That's
a second.
okay. Yeah.
I apologize. Anyway, so I can keep going on the different stuff.
Well, and you said so many things there, but one thing I really like about what you're talking about is that essentially because of the way you're doing things, you can have, small business alongside home growers, alongside edibles companies and people who are making them themselves. And like they can all
Yep.
sort of be together, because I find in a lot of spaces, it's legacy or legal, or it's buying from a legal
Yeah.
dispensary, or it's growing your own. And there isn't really a place for both of those things, even though there's room for both. So
Yeah, and that would be really stupid to do because the industry is made up of all of that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you either be inclusive or don't be here,
Right.
that's kind of, it doesn't make sense to me otherwise. So yeah, absolutely. We include everyone from small business owners to relatively large business owners.
Mhm. Who
I
can
mean, we have
also be
large
there
brands.
with the person who's growing their own weed in their backyard too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Bingo, the
Yes.
home grower,
Yeah.
right? We have a homegrown series here
Right.
with Jim Barry. We always do food and beverage here, always. In every single edition, we feature, uh, you know, not only a chef or a infusionist or whatever they are called these days,
Mhm.
but also a recipe. And I think it's important to be able to mash all that cool stuff, cannabis stuff together, because we get to, again, we show it in a really cool positive light that maybe a lot of people aren't used to seeing. Especially when you do combine all of this stuff and you wrap it up into a nice little bow with some art, it's just appealing, I
Yeah.
believe. And I think it's something that does hold your attention. And I think that's important. So when you mash all these things together, there's something for everyone. But when it comes to cannabis, a lot of us touch a lot of different parts of cannabis. So it's more than just one thing in there that's going to be appealing to you. I promise. You're also you're going to want to know about the home grower, right? You're going to want to read who that chef is or that infusionist is and what they're cooking. It's just how it is. You're going to want to read the interviews with all of the sports stars that we have in this upcoming edition that we're building right now. So I think it's important to be able to mash all those things together when it comes to cannabis. So, yep, you're spot on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, you also touched on something earlier about how a lot of people don't know about cannabis culture and community outside of the industry, outside of the cannabis space. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people do know that there's a culture around it, but unfortunately, it's really narrow. And it's typically that lazy stoner stereotype that refuses to die, or it's going to take a while for it to die. So, can you talk a little bit about how the magazine is breaking stereotypes and challenging those stigmas and introducing? You already touched on how you're introducing, the culture around cannabis, which is
Yeah.
it's varied. It's a myriad of things. It's
Yeah.
not just one thing.
Well, it's comes down to one word: normalization.
Mhm.
So everything is done because and for normalization here. That uplifting of the plant, you have to normalize it. So it means from, mothers who may possibly be pregnant consuming cannabis, right? And what those conversations are like, to people who are blowing their own glass and all of that kind of stuff, to the dad who takes a CBD, CBG, CBN tincture every night to help his arthritis, or all of those types of things. It's all just about normalization. I mean, I don't think it's difficult to be able to do that,
right?
Because that's an authentic way that a lot of stoners, so to speak, live. And I know stoner has had a typically a negative connotation to it, right? But we own that shit. So that's something we do here is we own that word, and we own it proudly, because just speaking about myself, not only have I written and released 3 albums on my own, I graduated college, I played college volleyball, I've done a lot of things in my life, period, being completely baked. I'm not kidding. And there are millions of us that are that way. So owning that word, that stigma, is extremely important to be able to break it, to punch it in its face. Because when you see a dude who is stoned, or when you talk to an NBA player who is a stoner, and they are everywhere in professional sports, I promise you, when you see the level of skill that these people possess, men and women both, it should tell you that your stigma or your thought or your narrow view that you spoke about is absolutely fucking wrong. I mean, and if it doesn't tell you that, then you're a closed-minded buffoon. And that's on you. It's not anybody else's fault that you don't have the, capability of thought. So there are plenty of instances of normalization of cannabis consumption through the highest levels of skilled people in this world, and have been doing it for many, many decades at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So we do and push and say and all of those things on a regular basis to bring about normalization and really, again, punch that stigma nonsense in its face as much as we can.
Right. And I do like that you're talking about owning the word stoner, although I think that there's also people who are just coming in and dipping their toes in, maybe like you said, it's the grandma who's using a topical just to manage her arthritis in her hands or whatever. And she may not see herself as a stoner, but once she sort of realizes how this thing can help her, she doesn't necessarily have to get stoned to do it, but there's so many ways that it can help people. And
well, that's why, in the culture, on every magazine, every edition, at the bottom on both the front and back cover, we have something that says cannabis culture welcomes us all. And I mean that. And that means from our stoner to our, I hate to say these things, like your soccer mom and stuff, right? It's just, I hate separating people like that. It's ridiculous. It really is. We're just people. So, this is for, and the plant is for, and the publication is for anyone and everyone who has ever had the thought of cannabis on their mind, period. That's what it is. Doesn't matter if you consume just CBG. I don't care. Or if you're ripping bongs 24/7, good for you. Dope. You're going to love the magazine. We're all a part of, this culture of uplifting the plant. That's what the culture is really about. It's about acceptance. It's about community. It's about being able to share the plant in any form, fashion that you want to, enjoy it at your leisure, consume it for whatever you want, and be accepted for doing so. That's what this culture really is about. Sharing, helping, showing, giving, all of that stuff when it comes to cannabis. That's it. It doesn't matter if I'm rolling fat ass blunts and dipping them in the bangingest fucking THC oil, or if I'm at home just taking my tincture that has CBD, CBG, and CBN in it. And I do that as well.
Right.
So
right.
It includes everyone,
yeah,
period.
I totally agree. Now, you've mentioned a couple times community. What role do you feel like community engagement plays in the ethos of Fat Nugs Magazine? And how do you help foster connections within the cannabis community?
Yeah. So this thing wouldn't be at all if it wasn't for the community itself, especially through LinkedIn. So the entire thing has been built on the back of the community, and the community has been a part of it. Writers come here just to write about the things they love and they're passionate about because they don't have an assignment. We don't have money, that kind of stuff. Now, once you get into the publication, you actually do get paid these days because we're growing, right? So that's cool. But this is a place where it's a community platform first, because we're telling the stories of the small mom and pop, equity, legacy, veteran, women-owned cannabis businesses and voices, right? So it's the community. It's a part of the community. That's all we're doing. As far as how do we foster connections within that community and build networking and stuff, that's really easy. Because we're connecting all of these people that don't necessarily have a chance to connect on their own, we're putting them together in this publication. Not only that, through our socials, good Lord, all we ever do is talk about other people, is uplifting other people's businesses and what the hell they're doing. That is how you foster connections. That is how you help make good, I guess, like cross sections of connections as well. People can trust you, right? They see Fat Nugs Magazine. They know we're here doing good work. We're not, being bullies or assholes, or, we're uplifting the right things. We're doing the right things. So they look at us, I believe, I hope, and see that the people that are a part of it are supposed to also be good, supposed to also love the plant. So fostering connections that way, I think, has been important. Physically doing this regularly on a daily basis is something I do. So after we release this health and wellness edition, and I normally do this, after we released this health and wellness edition less than 3 weeks ago, I then followed up with everyone that was a part of it and introduced each other and said, thank you for being here. Please talk to each other, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's super important to do. I don't know if other businesses do that. I don't know if other media companies do that. Like I take the time to contact everyone that was in the edition together and throw them together in an email chain and have a conversation and tell them how much they are appreciated, because they are. If they weren't here with us, we wouldn't be able to do what we are doing. Their voices mean something in this space. They are the people that we look up to, that we believe in, that we want to take part in when it comes to collaborate, partnership, when it comes to this industry and building it the right way. That's the thing that we do here. So there's how we, I guess, build the community up and connect people.
And I do love that. And I have seen that and experienced that myself, because I'm trying to remember, I think when we first connected, it was probably via Instagram, because that's the platform I tend to be most active on. And we spoke, and you did connect me with Chris Fontes. And yes, he came on on the show as a guest. We busted some cannabis myths together, and it was a great episode. Nice. And
he's a smart dude.
Yes, he is. Great guy. So I have personally benefited from that connection that you put us together. So thank you for that. I appreciated that very much.
Hey, thank you. I think you being open to wanting to connect with each other is just as important as me making the contact itself, or the introduction itself.
Right.
Because without you all wanting to actually talk to each other, the introduction means shit. Yeah. So the fact that you all were able to follow through and do something together, I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, because that's the other side of the coin, right? Like, you can make the introductions, but you can't force two people to come together unless they're willing to do it. But that's the kind of shit that I love, honestly, is because that's how I've built my podcast, is being able to connect with other people. And I've been really blown away by the number of people in this space that have been willing to, especially earlier on, who've been willing to take a risk and come on this, my little corner of the internet to talk to me on my show. Because when I first started, you're like, well, I'm going to ask this person if they want to be a guest. And I remember the first time I got a yes, I was like, holy shit. And I have to admit, every time I start an interview, even though I've done probably 50 of them now with all kinds of really cool people, I still get a little bit nervous. But then when I get off that interview, I'm usually so jacked up on adrenaline. It's like,
that tells me that you love what you're doing, which is fucking
Yeah.
rad. Congratulations on that,
Yeah.
because a lot of people in this world don't get to do something that they love and that they, get to enjoy. Even if it doesn't pay the bills,
Right.
it's still something that you get to, that you love to do.
Yeah.
Um, I can I ask you, why did you, I guess, have the feeling or thought, like, why would anybody want to come on the show? Do you know why? Did that thought kind of pop in your mind?
Well, in the early days, like I've been doing this show now for 4.5 years, and like in the
Or a risk? You called it a risk. I'm
yeah,
sorry. That's what
I
I'm
don't know if we
sorry.
use
I
the word
forgot the word.
risk, but it was just I'm in Canada. I'm this tiny little show. I'm not in like a big city or anything. And yeah, like sometimes I'm asking people who have a bigger platform, more experience, like all those things. And
So
yeah,
what you're experiencing, Marge, is the community
yeah,
aspect of cannabis.
yes.
So most people who are good human beings in this space are willing to just talk to you.
Hmm.
They're willing to have conversations about cannabis, about and learn about you, not only to talk about themselves, but hopefully learn about you and what it is that you're doing, what you're bringing to the space. How can they possibly help? That kind of stuff. That is the norm in this space. A lot of people may not be able to experience that, maybe because they don't either have the opportunity or they don't want to take the opportunity or they're too nervous or whatever the case may be. But if you're open in this space, people will absolutely bend over backwards to speak to you about literally just about anything.
Right. Yeah. And that's been my experience. I've interviewed all kinds of people who are doing all kinds of cool things and all walks of life. And so I've been very blessed, but you're right. The cannabis community has been super welcoming. So it's,
Yep.
that's been
You
my
won't find
experience.
this anywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will not find that anywhere else in any other industry. In the industries that I have been in, it's never been that way,
Right.
ever.
And which is why
So
one of the
it's
reasons why it's worth the challenges for me, because there are the challenges of producing cannabis content and putting it out there. Like, as I'm sure you've experienced, getting shadow banned on social media or all the other bullshit sometimes you have to put up
been
with,
there.
but it's worth it in the end.
Yep.
So I've met a lot of cool people
Yep.
like yourself. And now my next question for
Oh
you
shit.
is, do you have any like really memorable stories or interviews that you featured in your magazine? And what was it that made them stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that we've had in the magazine that I have been completely enthralled with, not only them themselves, but what they're doing. Um, so Doc Ray is someone who is a grower who's very well known out of California, out of the Emerald Triangle area. Been doing this a very long time, veteran. Uh, he grows specifically to treat his PTSD from, being in Vietnam. He was someone that I was super happy that we were able to have in the magazine. But I mean, this honestly, we don't do a lot of like celebrity stuff. I'm not your typical. I sorry to your listeners. I'm not a star fucker, so to speak, is what we call them. So I'm from. Before I got into the cannabis industry, I came from the film industry here in Atlanta, which is one of the largest in the world, and I worked on some of the greatest films you could ever want to work on. So I don't do celebrity. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. So we tend to just focus on having us, I guess, your normal everyday person. So honestly, as long as we're telling stories that deal with that, work within that, I guess, that framework, I guess, or um, really just telling the stories of the smaller people, so to speak, in this space, I think is the best part of what we do. But having someone say like Montel Williams that I was able to not only have in the magazine, but he brought me on his show and I was able to talk to him for a while. We also hung out in Boston last year and smoked together and talked and, shot the shit at a thing called Mass Grass, which was an event that we were a part of last year. That kind of stuff is really cool because seeing people from my childhood who you saw on TV and also have heard about over the years battling MS and consuming cannabis to treat that, to help him through that or help him with it, I guess, is pretty cool for me to actually be able to talk to someone like that. To know someone who has such a platform, who also is dealing with MS, who is also an advocate, who is a consumer, who smokes keef on a daily basis regularly to help with his pain and all of those things, that is impressive to me. And writing the piece on him, I actually wrote that piece. That's in that particular edition. That was pretty special. I don't do a whole lot of interviews and writing anymore. I don't have the time, unfortunately. I love to write. It's something I do, but I don't get a whole lot of time to do it. So that Montel piece that I did personally was pretty important to me.
That sounds pretty cool. And I didn't know that stuff about Montel. So I'll have to find that article and read it myself.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, I didn't know
Really?
that. And that he's such an advocate either. I mean, sometimes I don't really follow a lot of celebrity news either. And I do agree with what you said about, chasing that celebrity story, because a lot of the times most celebrities aren't really that interesting. And when I'm looking to get guests on my show, I want to have interesting people within the cannabis space, where if I was to tell somebody who's not really into cannabis, they'd be like, who are you talking to? Like, who's that? But exactly. I'm so excited. So the story of everyday regular people are super fascinating, because people are doing some really cool shit, but they just don't have like a platform with 1 million followers on it or something. So
bingo.
It's just
they don't have the backing, right? They don't have the investors. They don't have, people hyping them up everywhere. They don't
They're
have
just a person
that big
living their
entourage.
life. Yeah.
Exactly. They're putting in the real work. That's the real work, right? That's the backbone work of our industry, period. So, and I don't want to bash. I'm not a celebrity basher either. I just don't care.
Right.
So if and when, and I'm not stupid, I know they'll come around here. I know that. Just know that they'll be treated just like everyone else is here, because I don't do all of that stuff. I just don't care. And there are other publications that I know of out of Canada, actually, that kind of work the exact opposite of that.
Right.
So yeah, I find that interesting.
Yeah. Now I am curious, as the founder of Fat Nugs Magazine, how do you see the magazine evolving over the next few years? Where is it going?
Profitability.
That's a goal for everybody, I think, who's doing something like
that would be cool.
Yeah.
But I honestly see it just hopefully being more and more involved within the industry, being able to sort of step on the scales, so to speak, and leveling the playing field for the backbone side, instead of, the corporate always getting everything and the voice and controlling everything. I'm trying to help any way that I can. So I would like to be able to grow that influence. I think that's super important. I believe that eventually there will be an actual Fat Nugs office somewhere, where I hope to actually have my team at some point be able to come in and out whenever they choose. That would be really cool. I think when it comes to media, one of the things that can, obviously media can be anywhere and everywhere. Internet is anywhere and everywhere. But when you get a team together that is creative, that bounces and lives off of energy from each other, it's like being in a band. I've played in bands throughout my adult life, and having that untold connection and energy between each one of the band members is super important to be able to experience true creative growth in a team. So it would be really cool to be able to actually sit amongst my team and create these editions eventually. So I would love to be able to do something like that, possibly. Because I think of like National Lampoons getting together and doing their thing as a team back in the day. Right. That is that nostalgia. That would be really, really cool. Not that would ever be, a thing these days because of the internet.
Now that we're post-pandemic too, I think we went through that whole phase of everyone just being siloed in their own separate spaces. And
Yeah.
I think people really do want to come together. So having that as a goal for yourself sounds wonderful.
That's why events and
Yes.
shows and expos tend to do really well in this space, right? Because
Mhm.
we're all so remote. We get to come together every once in a while.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would definitely be cool to do that. So profitability, hopefully a space of our own one day. And then really the distribution side, I think, is something that I, see growing. I'm hoping that the industry truly understands what we're doing here and they get behind it more and more. Not to say that they haven't been, but as far as spending money with us, um, to truly help the team do what we're meant to do here, and that's bring authentic, timely, relevant content to the industry to be able to grow the industry, push the community aspect of cannabis, help, not only entrench and never let the culture die out of the actual plant, but to grow the culture and actually invite more people in. That's what I'm trying to do here. So 1,000 locations and 1,000 subscribers would change the game for us. And that's not even a lot because think about it. In the US alone, there's like, I don't know, 12 to 15,000 dispensaries, I believe. And getting that's not counting smoke shops, glass shops, head shops, your mom's shop, right? I don't give a shit shop, whatever. There's millions of gas stations, blah, 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 anywhere that you can buy a magazine, grocery stores, Barnes and Noble. I don't give a crap. Let's get this thing everywhere. Let's get it into airports. Like seriously, everywhere. Why not? So just 1,000 locations that are here as our partner, knowing that every time we release an edition, we're in 1,000 locations. That is a massive game changer here. Having 1,000 subscribers, massive fucking game changer here. So, that is something that is the goal. Hopefully, within 5 years of our first 5 years of existence, we're nowhere near that at this point. But small, slow, baby steps.
It's the consistent action. And are you familiar with Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans? He wrote a piece a while ago.
You know what? I did. I think I had a conversation about that the other day. If you had like 1,000 true fans spend $100 with you or a month or $1,000 with you every or whatever the case may be, you
have a viable business. So when you said the 1,000 subscribers, it made me think, because he basically says that sort of thing. Like, I can't remember the actual economics, and he did write it quite a while ago, but it was like 1,000, if you have 1,000 people who are willing to buy from you whenever you put something out because they're true fans, then you've got something. And I think that's really interesting because it's such a doable goal. Most people think, oh, I have to start like a YouTube platform and get 5 million followers or subscribers in order to succeed. And this guy's just like, actually 1,000, hit that number of 1,000 and you've got something.
So think about this. So we print 3,000 editions. They're gone.
Right.
They're gone.
So you're well on your way.
So think about that. I mean, we're already, we're heading down that road as long as just what you said, we are consistent. We continue to put in the work. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. I'm here 12 hours a day, every single day. And that's usually 6 to 7 days a week. No lie. I'm on my phone constantly. It's something like you have to build this media company from scratch. So I know the work that it takes to do that. And as long as we show up, or as long as I show up, we'll be fine.
Right. Now, the other side of that, where do you see the cannabis legalization landscape in the States or globally being in, say, 5 or 10 years?
Good Lord. Yeah. If you would ask me this 5 years ago, I would have said something completely different because, I just keep seeing the nonsense just being perpetuated over and over and over again into every single state. It's a complete joke. I can't stand it. So I don't see the industry being legalized or federally decriminalized, which is what needs to happen, or descheduled and all of that. I don't see any of that happening within 5 years. I think they continue to use it as sort of a carrot stick kind of thing here in the U.S. against us. And it just bothers me to no end to say that. I hate it so much, but I do think that's where we're going to be. I do not see the old dudes that we have here running things, changing anything anytime soon. Money talks. We don't have it. They have a big group that we are not allowed in to play with. So I don't see anything changing significantly on the, to better things for us. And by us, I mean the backbone side of this industry, the small mom and pop side of this industry, the small growers, the people who are making our growing our craft cannabis and making our craft products. I think it just continues to kind of be a grind. And if you're still here, thank God you're still fucking here, right? That's just kind of what it's going to be, I think. And again, I fucking hate to say that. It really sucks to say that. What I would like to see, obviously, is the exact opposite. And what I said prior, which is within 5 years, we have complete decriminalization, federal back off, states back off. And we're not treated like the redheaded stepchild, so to speak.
Right.
That's the way I would like to see it. I don't see it happening anytime soon. And you can see, thought leaders around this space are pretty much aligned, I think, on that for the most part. That Schedule 3 nonsense, I don't see it being done. And two, I don't really know, how much that's going to hurt or help. And really, I think it opens the floodgates for big pharma and other big companies to come in and lock down the industry, so to speak, through the courts. In each individual state. So I think what we have coming up here is probably another long fight. We're going to see a lot of people lose their shirts continuously, as we are now, and it's going to continue to be a bloodbath, so to speak. So it kind of sucks, but let's hope that I am utterly fucking wrong, Marge.
I'm curious,
please.
though, like as we record this, Germany is about to legalize, and obviously it's the most populous country in Europe. Would that have any kind of influence on American policy? Possibly? No.
No, the only thing that has any influence on policy whatsoever here is cash.
Right.
And there's 400 billionaires in this country, and they're the ones who have the money, and they're the ones who get to make all the laws for the other 350 million of us.
Right.
So that's how this country works. We're not, we get the illusion of freedom here, right? That's kind of how things happen. Money talks. No one cares about Germany here. No one cares about Spain here. No one cares about Canada here. We say we do in the industry, and we do. We absolutely do. But we're so focused on hopefully not drowning because of our own government's bullshit. It's hard for us to pay attention to anything else outside. That's another reason the global perspective that we have here is pretty important. We have writers from all over the world, including Canada. So, yes, great for Germany. Awesome. Until the U.S. federally legalizes in a positive light, in a positive way that helps everyone, the globe is going to either one, leave us behind, and or two, not truly feel like legalization is everywhere and accepted everywhere. I think the U.S. has such a deep culture when it comes to cannabis, and a deep history and a subculture that's always been connected to it, that we drive a lot of cannabis stuff around the globe. So especially California weed, right?
Yeah.
So it's important that the U.S. get on board, but I don't see it anytime soon.
Well, I hope you're wrong, and I'm sure you do too. But
yes,
and switching gears a little bit, what would surprise people about you?
Goodness. I don't know. I'm a softie. I don't know. Surprise me or surprise people about me. I guess that I spent 14 years in corporate America getting my ass handed to me. deeply depressed, anxiety out the ass, on medications that no one should be on. I was in a very bad place for a really long time. Also come from a family that has, suicide in it prevalent, a very large military family, all of that stuff. I think most people have no idea about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that the publication is connected to all of that. One of the things that tends to really surprise people is that I was separated from my family for 21 years.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't see my dad or my twin sisters for 21 years. I have about 90, I think there's about 94, 95 of us in my family, just on my dad's side, by the way. And after reconnecting with my dad, I watched the VA shove Percocet down his throat, and he was on Percocet for 20 plus years, and they ended up killing my dad. Double massive heart attack and a subsequent aneurysm from it. And, being on Percocet for 20 plus years, that's probably going to be the case when you hit about 65 or so, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, those types of things, I guess, maybe.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Especially, it must have been hard being separated from your twin sister for over 20 years. So
twin sisters. So I have twin younger sisters.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
They're twins to each other, not my own twin sister. That would
you have a huge family, and you have twins in the family too. That's pretty remarkable.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have multiple twins in the family. And yeah, separated from my dad for a very, very long time. And one really cool thing when we got back together, the first thing that we did was roll a fat joint.
Nice. So yeah, weed brings people together. So that's beautiful. Great answer. Yep. Now, do you have any, I guess my final question for you today, because we need to wrap this up, because you probably have a million more phone calls to make this afternoon, but
I'm already late to my next call.
Where can people find Fat Nugs Magazine in the wild?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we are in a lot of different dispensaries right now, Embark dispensaries all over California. They have like 13 locations, 20 by the end of the year. We have a few other dispensary partners around the country as well. You can get us on fatnugsmag.com, obviously, and order copies there, although they're all sold out at this point. We have sold out of every single edition we've ever created up to this point, which is kind of insane to think about.
Even the current edition.
And even the current edition is gone as of yesterday.
Because it just came out like a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Less than 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's gone. So otherwise, you can read every edition for free on fatnugsmag.com anytime that you want. Also, would love people to sign up for our free newsletter. It's a small zine. We send out a small magazine to your email every other Friday. Actually, this month, it's every Friday. Other than that, socials, LinkedIn,
right.
I'm there. Fat Nugs Magazine has its own page there. And then, of course, Instagram. So we try to be in as many different places as we can.
Is it available in Canada? Like, are there dispensaries that carry it in Canada?
So I have had dispensaries purchase boxes individually here and there, but I don't have a dispensary partner or a retail partner in Canada yet that actually wants the edition every single time and guarantees that purchase with us. So that hasn't happened yet, but hopefully we'll get there.
Okay. Yeah, I would love that, because I am old school and I like to have the paper copy in my hand myself. So, I mean, I like reading it online too, but I love having the hard copy that I can flip through.
There's nothing like having the hard copy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do centerfolds in the hard copies.
Right.
You can't
get those
that
online. That's right. It's not the same.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, this right here, you can't get that.
Yeah. And the art in the magazine really is phenomenal too. So
Thank you. We have an excellent photographer, and Casey and myself now do all the art. So that's how that works.
Yeah. So everyone listening, go find yourself a copy of Fat Nugs Magazine, maybe for the next edition when you can actually get a hard copy, and find them online. And Dustin, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to spend it with me today.
Thank you, Marge. I definitely appreciate it. The Bite Me podcast is dope. I think it's, you have one of the most catchy names in the industry. So well done.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And as always, I'm going to post all the show notes over on the website, so you can find it at bitemepodcast.com, and you'll be able to see where you can find Fat Nugs Magazine The website, I'll link to that over there too, because if you can't get your hands on a hard copy of the magazine, then you can read the issues online as well. And perhaps that's your preference anyway. I prefer having something in my hands, but we live in a digital age. In any case, if you enjoyed this conversation, consider sharing it with somebody that you care about who might also enjoy it, because word of mouth is one of the best ways to help get this show discovered to a wider range of lovely edibles-loving humans. You can always talk to me by email or the podcast hotline, or you can DM me over on Instagram. That's the platform I tend to be most active on, though maybe you'll see me more on LinkedIn after having this conversation. You can also stay up to date with stuff via the email newsletters. You can sign up for that, and then you can also get a copy of the Bite Me Edibles Cannabis Cookbook that I created a little while ago. And last but not least, consider using the products and services on the Marge Recommends page. That really does help to support the show. I'm your host, Marge, and until next week, my friends, stay high.